Greetings, Meshtastic family. I have been kind of lagging on making this video. I've been in a deep development hole since I first released version 0.1 alpha of Meshtastic AI, but I feel like this thing has gotten to enough of a stage where it's time to make, at least a little bit more rounded video that kind of just displays what this thing is capable of. I've already gone to town on the documentation, on the installation process, on the actual GitHub for this, and I will just kind of briefly touch all of that, but I just want to kind of show you guys what is possible with this software, and yeah, really get you excited about it, because this is a pretty cool project that I've been working on, and I've noticed that, and I just want to touch on this just because I feel like it's important to get this out of the way. Number one, I am not associated with the actual Meshtastic project. Obviously, Meshtastic AI is just supposed to be, I guess, what I consider it to be an old school phone operator, if you will, right? That's powered by an LLM or some sort of chatbot. People seem to be concerned, oh, we're going to flood the network with AI responses and this, that, and the other, but that really wasn't the intention of all of this. I feel like the core reason that we're utilizing LLMs and the possibility of using OpenAI and things like that is more to just have essentially a smart processor at the center of all of this, right? That's able to handle all of the different routing and management and all the other things necessary in order to be able to facilitate some of these more advanced features, right? Like Home Assistant integration, for example. So Home Assistant integration is one of the key main things that I really love about what this has done. The ability to send short messages to your house, for example, if you were like way the hell off grid, Home Assistant can theoretically operate without internet. Oh, I hope that's a good scratch, Pina. And I think that, there is a use case for being able to, lock, unlock, turn lights on and off, check the status of a sensor, all through text-based messaging with a mesh node like Meshtastic. And so, it really does open the avenue of being able to utilize this hardware in a much more open use case sense without having to necessarily rely on a whole ton of development, because a lot of this routing and a lot of these other features that are inside of Meshtastic AI can be added on really easily through future planned plugins and other things like that. The other real advantage of this is being able to route things like emergency messages, pulling your GPS data, putting it into a Google Maps link, sending that out over email or SMS, or even into Discord, right? Being able to monitor a Discord channel that you use for emergencies, like maybe in a national park, for example, or if you guys are out doing whatever, you can have somebody that's, offline somewhere else that's able to monitor your progress and everything else, as long as you have the, a remote internet connection somewhere and one location, everybody else can be completely offline and still be able to take advantage of, the safety features and other things of this script. So after kind of touching on that a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and dive right into this. And let's see if we can show you guys how cool this software really is. All right, so this is Meshtastic AI. And on the right-hand side, you'll see the latest version of LM Studio. At the time of this video, this is 0.3.13 build 2 of LM Studio. In my case, I am running my whole situation here in an offline sense. I'm not trying to hit OpenAI, though I did include OpenAI as an option just in case somebody wanted to. But I prefer the offline LLMs. That's where I see the real strength in all of this, and trying to keep this as much of an offline system as possible. And I'm just going to kind of really run through like what this thing is capable of. I'm also recording my screen on my phone right now, and I'm going to try to show off exactly how this works. But essentially on the left-hand side here, you'll see the latest version of my code running. This is 0.4.2, again, at the time of this video. And if it starts up correctly and you've done all of your configuration and everything correctly, it should look pretty much like this. It should say that it's loading the configuration file and everything else. And now you could turn on debug mode as well inside of the config, and it's going to give you a whole bunch more information than this. You'll be able to see the ingoing and outgoing packets that you're sharing and everything else. It's really interesting to look at. And if you're really curious about the Meshtastic network and how it works, I highly suggest that you enable it at one point. Just take a look. But essentially over here on my phone, you'll notice that there is a mesh node called Mesh AI, right? And in the most basic sense, I can come here and I can direct message my, my AI, right? And I could just say, hello, right? And So essentially, it should be received, we would hope. Boom. It now saw hello. It routed the message over to LM Studio. It now waits 10 seconds before responding in order to reduce collisions and other network traffic issues. And then it responds, no problem, how can I assist you today? And boom, there it is on the screen. Total turnaround is maybe 15, 20 seconds. It really just depends on the LLM and the size of the LLM that you're using. Whether you're using LM Studio or Ollama or OpenAI obviously will determine that timing as well. And it does obviously report that, chunk 1 of 1 was sent. Now, chunking is something that I've done here. Obviously, you're not going to fit an AI response into a single message in a lot of cases. I don't like the idea of the network being flooded. I'm going to make that very, very clear. And I've baked in some logic into my script in order to try and prevent that by breaking things up and then sending them out over the course of a minute or so. So longer responses will take a while, obviously, to come to you. And that's just out of respect for the network and making sure that we're not flooding things. It is a concern of mine. It has been definitely on the forefront of my mind this whole time while I've been developing this. And I just want to make sure that it's clear that, this is not my intention for this to be used in a nefarious way, okay? Like, I don't want people going in and purposefully flooding the long, fast channel with AI responses and this, that, and the other. It's not intended for that, and it is actually programmed so that on channels it simply won't just outright respond without you including slash commands and other things like that. So the hope is that, you'll get some use out of it, especially if you're in an off-grid situation. That's kind of what this is intended for, information retrieval. But if you're in a really heavily used zone, use this with some respect for the people around you. But that's just one example, right? So if I come back over here, I've set up on my particular node a Home Assistant bot cave. This particular one is on channel index 6 on my phone, and you'll notice in the documentation how all of that works. But I can turn lights on and off in my house. So I have an LED strip that's underneath my desk. You can see here that I've turned things on and off. I won't show this off because I don't have my smart lights in my new office yet, unfortunately. I'm working on that. But it does work properly. You're able to send a message on this particular channel. Home Assistant will pick it up, for example. So turn on the office LED strip, right? And I send it on this channel specifically. This channel. It doesn't need a slash command. Boom, immediately it says rounding the Home Assistant channel, and then if you see underneath me, my LED strip underneath my desk just turned on. And it responds, turned on the light, just like Home Assistant would. So you could also use the same thing to check the state of the sensors. You could ask, hey, is my door locked? Is the door closed? Is the window closed? When was motion last detected here? Pretty much anything that you can do with the Home Assist API. Super powerful stuff, right? So those are kind of like the two biggies. But let's talk about Discord for a second, okay? Discord integration, Twilio, and email. So say that I was, off-grid hiking by myself, right? And I have an emergency. Now, any channel that this node is a member of would be able to take advantage of this command, right? In particular, mine, I just have a Mesh.ai one for testing or whatever, but I could just go emergency, I fell off a cliff, right? And I could send that. Okay, now it's going to originally see that it's an emergency notification. It's going to send an SMS via Twilio, which my Twilio account's being worked on right now. They haven't finished setting it up for me. It'll send an email via SMTP, and it's going to send it's going to do an emergency alert on Discord. And then it will respond to the node to let it know that it's been heard. Emergency alert 10, stay safe. And the emergency alerts look like this. It's basically, and I'm sorry about my 4K-ness here, but it's got a Google Maps link. Click the Google Maps link, and it'll bring it up right here with their approximate location, right? This all depends, this is Las Vegas, but this all depends on how accurate the GPS location is for the node itself. So I do suggest, obviously if you're implementing this and you're trying to use it seriously, that people have their precise location on for the channel that you're going to use for this. But it works great. And that's just kind of one of the real powerful things this is capable of. Other obvious things that we could do here, and this works, in a direct message to it. It works in channels. You can do /ping, which then responds with a pong. You can do /test, which identifies your node, and then sends your location string. So basically it responds with, where you were heard from. This makes single-person long-range testing and like doing range tests and stuff extremely easy because you don't rely on a second person to do it. You set your AI mesh node up and you go as far as you want. You send a ping to it, see if you get a response. Nice little tool set there. In addition to that, you're also able to essentially route messages back from Discord. Right? So like if I wanted to, I could send a message in on this channel, and this is a private channel. I don't share this with anybody. So again, respect the damn mesh network, okay? Do not go in here and like make your Meshtastic AI bot like a member of some crazy active Discord channel, because all you're gonna do is flood the Meshtastic network, and it's just not what my intention was for this. But I do feel like the power of these tools is worth it as long as people respect the technology that they're using, right? So if I send a message back to Discord, in my case, testing response, right? My script will poll Discord every 10 seconds, this particular channel for messages, and then it'll send my username with this over that same channel, right? So I'll get a message basically saying, boom, on my Mesh AI channel, Mr. T-Bot, testing response. Okay, so this would allow somebody who's really far away in a way other than MQTT. See, this is the one thing like that I've noticed is that MQTT and Meshtastic just are not quite there yet. Especially with ESP32 nodes, it tends to just crash the node and like it doesn't work correctly. And I actually ran into that a lot while developing my software here because I was running into all these win errors and all these other issues, and it was all attributed to my node was hooked up to MQTT as well. And it was just too much for it. So the bottom line is that you want to kind of make sure that you're doing things in a way that is respectful to the network and isn't going to overwhelm your node because it will just not work correctly. These things are not intended to be constantly broadcasting, and especially if you're in Europe, you are limited to like 1/10 the time that we are in the United States. So that's something that we just need to be aware of. Now, another thing that this thing has, which is really cool, is the Web UI dashboard. If you come here, you hold control inside the terminal and you open it up, you'll notice that it brings you into this cool customized dashboard that I built out for this thing, which shows you your channel messages on the left, your direct messages on the right, any available node in the middle, and it's not showing it right now, but any node that shows up within the last hour is going to be highlighted, and messages that came in recently are going to be highlighted as well within the last hour. You have a send message box at the top, which allows you to send messages out over channels, or you can send a message out over direct, where you can select whichever destination node that you want that's available to you. You could also use the DM buttons, reply buttons, and it sets that all up for you correctly, as well as in the direct messages. Discord messages, same thing. You can respond right here within the web interface. What's also cool about this is this allows you to send, just like in the AI responses, it lets you send chunked messages. So you can send a longer response, which gets broken up and then sent out over a longer period of time. So if you needed to send a little bit of text all in one time, or if you're just trying to respond to something, you can do that here. Again, not meant to be abused, just meant to improve the functionality and, while at the same time respecting the airtime. You can see here you got a character counter and a number of chunks sent, up to 5. Okay, this is obviously adjustable, but we're not trying to send novels over Meshtastic. It's not what its intended use case is. I cannot stress that enough. Here at the very bottom, you'll see that you have Show UI Settings. It's pretty straightforward. You can adjust your theme color to anything you want. You can also just enable a hue rotation if you're feeling colorful. And then this is just going to rotate the hue of the UI. Pretty cool looking, in my opinion. Just something nice to look at. And I'm a big Star Trek fan, so like I'm working on the LCAR style interface thing. It's like this whole thing fascinates me. If at the bottom, you can also set up an incoming message sound. So it has to be online. It cannot be locally stored. So you just find or upload an MP3 to your own website, or you can just find an MP3 that's hosted online, and you can use the link to it here, and it will play that message sound when messages come in. Pretty straightforward. You also have at the top, you have a logs button, which allows you to come in and actually view the most recent directly from the terminal. This is just what the terminal is showing. And this just allows you to get an eye on what the hell's going on inside your Meshtastic node. This could be shared with some port forwarding if you really wanted to, but I wouldn't suggest doing that. There's no security on this yet. but you could do it over VPN, or you could just access this within your local network. And this only was developed because Meshtastic, their actual web UI cannot attach to this node at the same time as Meshtastic-ai. Because of their software, it's not able to communicate with two different things simultaneously. So I didn't want people to necessarily have to have two nodes to be able to message as well as use Meshtastic-ai. I wanted it to be able to be one package. People can actually still utilize my software in order to handle all of this. And while I'm at it, I just wanted to mention that the way that this was developed was mostly using AI. I'm not a super crazy Python coder or anything like that, but I have enough experience over my 35 years, and probably 32 of those have been in computer land. And so I have a very deep and core understanding of pattern recognition and when it comes down to code. And since the advent of AI, I've been able to crush these things out like it's no tomorrow. Updates and everything else. But I feel like it's important to mention, that I could definitely use assistance in developing this, and I would definitely appreciate, community feedback in terms of, how they would love to see it going. Now, I don't want to hear the negative stuff about how, oh, well, I don't want to get spam. Well, no, neither do I. I don't think that's really what the intention was. But I do want to know that, I can set up a system that if I decide to go hiking, 20 miles away, and I got a mesh node 10 miles away, another mesh node, that there's a chance that if I fall off a cliff or something, that I can utilize this in order to actually be able to be like an old school phone operator, like, oh crap, T-Bot's hurt. Let's send a message out to have him, not be hurt. And it's just kind of where my intention was with all of this. But that pretty much covers what I think are the main features of this. There are a couple other follow-up things here, like you could do /SMS followed by the phone number, followed by a message, and that routes a phone SMS text message out over Twilio, which then you can set up Twilio's phone number to actually send either into a channel or into directly to the same node that it was sent from, right? So it's just basically handling a single SMS number that can then basically be either shared with nodes or just can basically be an incoming phone number for a channel within Meshtastic, which I thought was pretty cool, right? And obviously we have SMTP email support, which sends the same notification, right, essentially over email that it does to Discord. And actually I have it right here. Boom, emergency alert. And so this is what came in. It gives you the location, it gives you the last GPS time, and then it says the message, I fell off a cliff. Right? So, that's pretty much the overarching view of all of this. If you want to, obviously, install this software, you just got to head on over to GitHub, and I'll just go and bring it up here. And it's going to be github.com/Mr-Tbot/meshtastic-ai. And you'll see this is the 0.4.2 version. There's a ton of documentation, including disclaimers and other things, and I really do appreciate it if you read everything, including all of the different / commands. Where am I, for example, gives you your GPS data location. You can do all these different / to call the AI inside of chats. You've got various different REST API endpoints, which can be used for other scripts, right? This was something that was designed with the intention of other people being able to use the data that my script is pulling in order to improve their software. You've got extensive change logs that takes you through all my version updates and everything else over the last month and a half or so. And then quick start guides for not only Windows now, but also Ubuntu and Linux. We just had a user, I believe it was Milo O. Just correct me if I got that wrong, but he went ahead and was the first person to actually attempt this. Again, one man, one robot using other robots to write my code, and so I'm a little bit limited in my time. But we also had another user. It was, let's see here, Clen Daniel, who helped us get Docker support. And then we also have a Nick Lance who's been working on an alternative of my Meshtastic-ai, which has got a whole bunch of other cool features for APRS and everything else. And future plan is that this is going to be modular, that it's going to be able to have plugins for things like APRS, BBS, mail, like whatever different crazy features This thing is your phone operator. Okay, it's able to take all these different things and it's able to route it through Meshtastic for an emergency or whatever else, whatever your use case might be. I will say that when you download this, you're going to want to make sure that your folder is just called meshtastic-ai instead of it being meshtastic-ai-main, which is what I think it downloads as, just because it's the main branch. You also have all the basic usage information here, how to send SMS, right? How to set up the channel indexes. Here's an example configuration file and all the different things. Please note that the channel names here are the channel names that show up in the web dashboard, right? So like this is not going to affect the channel names on your node. I haven't worked out exactly how to pull this out reliably yet from the node, so I'll get there. This won't be there in the future. It also allows you to turn off replying in channels or replying in direct messages entirely. Lets you set the message chunk size and delays, which again, respect this. This seems to be not overwhelming, but like just don't overwhelm your local space. You've got your location string. This is what gets responded to, like received at my location is like at, and then say you're cross streets, right? And then when somebody does a /test, this will be responded to with, hey, you've been received at my location by, and then it's going to give the node name. So you can basically name that something creative and whatever. It lets you set a max message log. This is how many messages it keeps in the background, for your web dashboard, whether you want to do SMS or email, right, as Twilio or SMTP. You set up your phone numbers, you set up your email information. You can send alert emails to a list of email addresses, so it doesn't just have to be one. And then also you can do, obviously, all of your Discord settings. There's extensive information here about how to do the Home Assistant portion of it and like enabling, for example, the Home Assistant settings here. Which AI provider you're going to use is another one. And I do feel like it's also very important that this does support not only USB serial connection, it also supports Wi-Fi connection now. So you can use a Wi-Fi connected ESP32 or other node, punch in the node IP here, as well as the Wi-Fi port, and it's going to pick up and run with it. You're going to be able to also, for example, use the mesh interface, which is one of the newer implementations of how, and I haven't had a lot of success with the mesh interface yet. This is why it's not super documented. But this is just a third way, similar to Serial, that Meshtastic has offered for connecting to their hardware. But essentially, once you finish doing all of that, you can set up Home Assistant, which has, asks you for your token and a timeout, basically how long are you willing to wait for Home Assistant to respond, as well as a channel index, and this is which 0 through 9, which channel number you want Home Assistant to listen to and respond on. And if you don't want it to listen to respond to everything on the channel, you can enter a PIN, right? And then followed by your input, and then it'll actually respond. This was just kind of intended as maybe an extra layer of security if you're direct messaging it or something like that, but it's also intended that this thing will not answer Home Assistant calls direct messaging. That way, it's as secure as possible. You're locked behind a channel encryption code. You're also, if you want, locked behind an additional PIN code, which obviously is going to be seen by people in the channel, but it just trying to add layers of security here. You have the options of LM Studio, which I'm personally using. You have OpenAI, obviously, and you have Ollama, which is now apparently working correctly as well. Here's how to set up all of your email integrations. Here's examples and very detailed setup of the Discord integration, which requires you to go into the development portal and set up a Discord bot and like use the permissions calculator. I mean, all the details on setting all of this stuff up is here. And then you also have the Twilio integration, which is where you're going to get all of your SID, your auth token, your from phone number. And, that's available through the setup guide for Twilio here. There's all the other important settings, right? And then, obviously donations are graciously accepted here, okay? Like I did not intend for this little short passion project to take over a month and a half of my life away from me, but I have quickly seen that a lot of people are super excited about this. It obviously has, a dark side to it if people abuse it, and I don't want that to be the case, but it's got so many use case scenarios I feel for, off-grid emergency management, just kind of keeping people together when it comes down to, being able to have a family member or family members monitor your trip when you're, say, like out hiking or this, that, or the other. I mean, there's so many cool things that you could do with this. and it'll run just fine on a Raspberry Pi. I mean, I have it running with my LLM on a little $60 Lenovo computer that's from off lease, and it runs great. I mean, like, you use these smaller models like the 1B models, the 3B models, and your response times are going to be fantastic. I mean, a lot of them are really, really good for these simple use case scenarios. I do suggest getting instruct models, especially if you're trying to do Home Assistant integration. But like, for example, you could have an AI that's role playing, right? Like you could be out Meshtastic, whatever. I mean, like there's so many just weird, fun projects, things that could come from this. And I'm not stopping here. My intention is not really to stop here. I mean, like I want to continue to listen to the community input. I want to continue to try and develop this in a way that is responsible and respectful to the original project. And I really hope that I don't see abuse, within that, because I don't want to hear about that. I never intended for this to have that. But I do feel like all the settings that I've provided are not just there because they should just be there, but they're also there because I don't know exactly in what networks or markets this thing is going to end up getting used in, right? So if it's in Europe, obviously you need to send messages less often, and those calculations need to be done. And I hope that somebody from the EU hits me up and kind of helps me figure out how we can make this something, or at least the right settings that people should put in for the European Union or whatever to respect their broadcast times. But aside from that, I feel like there's a lot of power behind this. I hope other people are super stoked about what this does and its use case. I'm going to continue to push updates as I see, but the reason I made this video today is because 0.4.2 is pretty stable. I've had it running several days now without any kind of crashes or weirdness. I do know that there are some issues still with win errors occasionally, but my error handling in this version of the script is great. If it detects anything, it shuts everything down and then reconnects to the mesh node after 30 seconds. And this should hopefully balance out any connection ups and downs, or if your node resets or whatever it might be. This version is hella stable, and I'm pushing very close to a version 1. So I hope you guys enjoyed this quick video on Meshtastic AI. I'm super stoked. I'm slowly working on a community for this. Right now it's just kind of mainly focused around GitHub. And I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. Have a wonderful day, afternoon, wherever.